Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris, and the time has come at long last. We have my mega review of all 6 brand new Ninjago Summer 2024 Dragons Rising sets. Let's come on into the collection and check them out, because believe me when I say, these are some of the best LEGO Ninjago sets we have ever gotten. And I do not say that lightly. So the composition of the wave is basically 3 large, really phenomenal sets, and then 3 smaller supplemental ones, which I'm a little mixed on for the smaller ones. But let's start off by taking a look at the big heavy hitters. First off here, we have the Tournament Temple City, one of the largest LEGO Ninjago sets they've done. Obviously doesn't quite rival the scale of the Ninjago City sets, but it kind of is a nice callback to the Temple of Jitsu and that style of building. And then we have the largest LEGO Ninjago dragon yet in the Source Dragon of Motion here. Absolutely phenomenal, posable, fully detailed set. So excited to show that in more detail. And then we get to my personal favorite set of the wave. What is, in my opinion, not just the best LEGO Ninjago mech ever, but the best LEGO mech ever. And I do not say that lightly, because we've had some really great mechs out in Ninjago, but it's Cole's Titan Dragon mech here. And you'll be pleased to hear that this mech has the most points of articulation out of, I believe, any mech we've ever gotten from LEGO before, and they accomplished all of that at a massive scale. So I can't wait to dive more into that. And in terms of the rest of the sets, we have the $90 Ninja Team Combo Vehicle set, which is kind of a callback to the Ultrasonic Raider and the Ultra Stealth Raider. I'm gonna be honest, this is like $40 more expensive than it should be, but again, a little mixed on that one. But then we've got the Tournament Battle Arena, which is a set that actually combines with the Tournament Temple City, and you can use it to expand the set itself. It acts as a minifigure pack with all sorts of exclusive characters in the set. And finally, to round out the wave, we have Zane's Ice motorcycle here, which is just kind of a standard Ninjago gimmick style motorcycle. Now, obviously, as you might have been able to tell from rumors and leaks and leaked images and all sorts of stuff swirling around about these sets, this wave features the return of some fan-favorite LEGO Ultra Agents characters, Tox and Mr. Pale, who previously appeared in LEGO Ultra Agents in 2015, but of course, were part of the Tournament of Elements in Ninjago, and it's so crazy to see them actually redone as official Ninjago figures almost 10 years later, which is absolutely insane to me. We're actually getting them as figures for this wave. And without further ado, I cannot wait. Let's jump into my mega review of all 6 brand new sets, and stay tuned, because over the next few days, we will be putting out dedicated videos showcasing just the minifigures and each of the individual sets as well. So let me know in the comments, which one of these sets do you want to see an individual review from me come out soon? And let's dive into the full wave right now. Okay, so here are all 6 sets coming out for LEGO Ninjago in the summer of 2024. At a first glance, this wave may seem like the quintessential Ninjago wave. You've got a temple, a mech, a dragon, a motorbike, a combo vehicle, and a figure pack. Those are basically a playlist of Ninjago's greatest hits. But the reason why this wave really stands out to me is probably the fact that at least 3 out of those 6, in my opinion, do their type of set better than any other Ninjago set that has come before, and in certain cases, do its type of LEGO set better than any other LEGO theme. And yes, I'm talking about Cole's Titan Dragon mech. But let's actually step back and take a look at all of these sets as a whole here, and take a look at the wave holistically. Starting off with the largest one here, 71814 is the Tournament Temple City. This will retail for around $250 and comes with 3,489 pieces, making it pretty considerably good value, especially when you compare it to a lot of the other location-based sets we've gotten in the past. The next one is the largest Ninjago Dragon ever. 71822 retails for $150 and comes with 1,716 pieces, absolutely blowing away the last largest dragon, which was Lloyd's Golden Ultra Dragon, completely out of the water. Next up, we have set number 71821. This is Cole's Titan Dragon mech. It is the 4th in a series of these Titan mechs from Ninjago, which integrate white into the color schemes of the main ninja, retailing for $100 and coming with 1,055 pieces. Next up, we have set number 71820. This is the Ninja Combo Vehicles, which is kind of a strange set. it comes with 576 pieces, but is unfortunately $90. Ooh, more on that later, so obviously that one's a little bit overpriced, but I guess you'll win some, you lose some. There are some great deals here and some not so great deals. Next up, we have 71818, which is the figure pack with 659 pieces. It actually has deceptively more pieces than you'd imagine. That retails for $50 US, which is a little more expensive than typical Ninjago figure packs have been in the past, like the Gamers Market, but it also comes with more pieces. And then finally, we just have one starter set in the wave, set number 71816, that's Zane's Ice Motorcycle, retailing for $10, coming with 84 pieces. All in all, as I mentioned, this is pretty much everything you would want from a Ninjago wave, and I really do gravitate towards what are, in my opinion, the three best sets of the wave. They happen to be the largest sets, and don't get me wrong, it's not always the case that the largest sets are the best. In fact, there have been many waves of older LEGO themes where sometimes the smaller sets are the best ones, but honestly, here the larger ones take the cake, and it's actually the smaller sets that are a little bit weaker for me. I like the figure pack, but $50 is a lot to ask for kind of a smaller side build. The $90 for the Ninja Team vehicles is just ridiculous, and we'll get more to that later. And Zane's $10 Ice Motorcycle is, I guess, okay, but does feel a little bit clunky and not the most exciting thing to get. However, I do want to start off by taking a closer look at all of these sets as a whole and kind of talk about the composition of the wave before we dive individually into each one of the sets. The wave itself introduces Ninja in new tournament outfits and feels kind of like a redux of Tournament of Elements back in 2015. We've had Tournament of Sources mentioned in the Ninjago TV show, and at the time of this recording, Part 2 of Dragons Rising Season 2 is not out, so I have no idea how a tournament is going to play into the storyline, but that seems to be a major focus for this particular wave, although at first glance you wouldn't necessarily be able to know. Really, only 2 out of the 6 sets are focused on this concept of a tournament, with the largest one being more of a display piece and a place to actually play out battles. Regardless, there are a lot of really interesting builds here, and I can't wait to get into it, but I want to start off by talking about the composition of the minifigures as well. In addition to the new tournament suits, of which you get at least 2 copies of every single ninja in their tournament outfit included throughout the wave, some with and without their armor pieces, but you generally get a copy of all the core ninja, the original team, as well as new versions of suits. For Eren and Sora, also 2 copies of them included throughout the sets. You get 2 copies of Wildfire in her new outfit as introduced in the earlier March sets, so that one's not an actual new minifigure for this particular wave. And for the Villains faction, you get 2 copies of Lord Roz, 2 copies of Jordana wearing Shatterspin armor, which is a new piece for the wave, as well as 1 copy of Cinder in his smoke form, sporting a transparent black arm. You also get an exclusive outfit for Mech Pilot Cole, who kind of looks like he's inspired by LEGO Exoforce and as well as Evangelion and all sorts of anime-inspired mech outfits. And this season, the Wolf Mask Warriors are getting an update. Instead of having the azure and dark blue color scheme, they've swapped it out for a red and dark purple. And I'm gonna be completely honest, yes, I know these are all toys, but the dark purple and the red just isn't really a color scheme that's working for me. It feels almost too toyish to me, if you know what I mean. I'm sure the show is gonna make them look absolutely crazy cool, but as they are right now, I'm gonna be honest, I'm kind of mixed on the color scheme. I feel like the bright red was not the right choice to use here, and I definitely am a bigger fan of the original color scheme they had, which was much more muted with darker tones, making them feel more like a serious villain faction. That being said, speaking of villains, we actually are getting a core member of the original Ninja team in villain form. Evil J is exclusive to the tournament training grounds, and that is a really exciting minifigure to get because obviously we have no idea at this point how Jay is going to join the villain side, and we know his mind has been wiped, but we really don't know where he's going to go from there, so you can make some suggestions and conjectures, but it is a really cool outfit that we're getting for Jay, full on in evil garb, fighting for the villains, and I cannot wait to see that play out in the show. In addition to Jay, we actually have 2 of the most exciting minifigures for me personally. They're returning minifigures from Season 4 Tournament of Elements, which introduced a whole host of elemental masters, Tox and Mr. Pale. But what's really cool is that the designs of these characters actually originated from a completely different LEGO theme. In 2015, LEGO also was running LEGO Ultra Agents at the same time as Ninjago, and in order to come up with concepts for Elemental Masters in Ninjago, they literally just took 2 of those Ultra Agents villain designs and brought them into Ninjago Season 4. Well, now finally, almost 10 years later, oh my goodness, how time flies. I had to think about that one for a second. We're actually getting Ninjago versions of Tox and Mr. Pale as official minifigures in Ninjago, completely reimagined for Dragons Rising, which I think is so cool. And you can go back and check out my unboxing video where I actually opened up the boxes and saw these for the first time because my mind was absolutely blown. And that was probably one of the most excited times I've ever been opening a brand new package from LEGO completely blind. In addition to them, we actually get a number of additional minifigures. Most of them are civilians that come with the $250 temple set. There are a couple of named characters, including one that has quite a unique design, so I'm guessing that that will be actually an important side character that will appear in the show, as well as a very interesting metallic gold design for a temple guard, which appears to be fighting on the side of the villains, as a fully robotic, almost Zane-like droid, featuring some clockwork components to it. It's super interesting. Again, have no idea how that's going to play into the show, but it is a really cool minifigure. I will be taking a closer look at all of the minifigures as a whole when we actually do a dedicated minifigure showcase video, so stay tuned for that. I think it's coming out tomorrow or very shortly, if not tomorrow. But now we can move on from the minifigures and take a look at the sets for this mega review. And so we're going to actually start off with the smallest set and work our way up the price points as we get to the largest sets of the wave, as I share my thoughts on each and every one of the sets that make up Ninjago's Dragons Rising Season 2 Part 2 Wave lineup. Let's start off by taking a look at the smallest set of the wave. This is Zane's Ice Motorcycle. For $10, it comes with 84 pieces and only one minifigure, a version of Zane without the new armor piece, which is a little bit unfortunate because you really do need that extra armor piece to complete the figure. However, thankfully, they do include extras of the armor piece in many of the larger sets of the wave, so if you do get any of the other bigger sets, you can go ahead and complete the figure. Now, this is a bike-based Ninjago set, as we've gotten many times before. Thankfully, there are clips to store the accessories of the minifigure itself, and really, the thing about this set that I do find quite interesting is that the entire thing has been built around one particular function. And the function is interesting. I'm honestly a little bit mixed on it. It does work very well, but it's also not the most interesting or exciting function they could have come up with for a Ninjago set. Essentially, the way it works, if I can actually get Zane stood up on his bike here, is that as you're driving it along, you could press down on this gold button on the back and boom, the ice spikes will lash outwards on the sides of the vehicle. It's super simple. The way it's done is you literally just have 2 lift arms connected to the back wheels, and those sort of push the ice blades out, and a rubber band keeps them in. So it is the most simple function you would want to include in a small set like this, but I do appreciate their intent on trying to implement a function into a smaller set like this. It kind of reminds me of a similar function that we got for Kai's Blade Cycle back in 2012, although that one was a lot more armored up and honestly had a lot more going on, and this one just feels pretty simple and standard compared to what you get. Unfortunately, I feel like the biggest thing missing about this set is the lack of a villain minifigure, especially given that the set has a function that literally allows you to whack other figures away. It's kind of crazy to me that this didn't include at least one regular wolf mask soldier, even just done up in the new color scheme. No need for giant claws in the back, just a single minifigure to knock over would have improved the play value of this by a lot. I'm going to take a minifigure here just so you can see what exactly that would look like. Here's one of the Wolf Mask Warriors from one of the other sets. Imagine you're a kid, you're driving along the motorcycle, and then you come across a villain. Boom, you can whack them off. That feels like such a fun play feature to me, and it's a kind of play feature that would have made so much more sense
if they actually managed to include a villain minifigure in the set itself. Bonus if they even had to have the extra arm attachments, because that would have made for a little bit more of a formidable foe against this set. It just feels so satisfying to just whack figures out of the way, and I don't really know why they didn't do it. As it is right now, unfortunately, Zane's ice motorcycle feels like kind of it's missing a big part of what makes it fun to play with, and that is the actual villain minifigure to attack with it. Because of that, the set does feel like a little bit hollow for the price. I definitely feel like for $10, it's not bad value. I mean, we've seen a lot of $10 motorcycles before, and this really is no different. But it just feels like a bit of a miss to have no villain, not even an exclusive minifigure. At least the last time Ninjago did a motorcycle that had a minifigure in it as the only character in the set, that one was exclusive and really cool in the form of Golden Dragon J. This one is just the regular version of Tournament J that's actually worse than the other versions of J that come in this wave. This one is just the regular tournament version of Zane that's actually worse than the ones that actually come in the rest of the sets because it doesn't have that armor piece. As it is, it's a fun idea for a Ninjago bike, but the function does leave a lot of its mechanism exposed. It also forces Zane to be seated really far back on the driver's seat there. In fact, he's not even sitting. He is standing up all the way far back, and you really kind of have to have that happen due to the number of parts included and the fact that the rubber band is very exposed. And it really just kind of feels like something built around the function rather than trying to be a set that's fun to play with on its own. It's not a bad set, it's not a good set either, it's honestly one of the most average sets of the wave. I don't really have that much else to say about it other than for $10, it's a good entry point set, but it definitely feels like you have a lot to be desired. But now let's move on one step upwards to the $50 set because there's a lot more I have to say with that one. So this right here is set number 71818, the Tournament Training Grounds, retailing for $50 US, coming with a surprisingly high 659 pieces, as well as 3 exclusive minifigures and then 3 minifigures that appear in other sets in some variation. Obviously, this is kind of like one of those great Ninjago figure packs we used to get, like the Gamers Market and stuff like that. A few less figures, and it's a little bit more expensive than those used to be as well, but you get the general gist of it, and really, the entire focus point of the set is to provide a platform in which to display your figures, to play with them, and to have some interactive features to actually aid in the tournament. Now, I do think that the most important draw of this set is the figures, but I'm going to start off by talking about the functions really quick. You have a very simple function of tilting platforms up at the front, and this basically allows you to do battle with your opponent. So obviously on the box art, Kai is battling Evil J, and as kids, you can actually rotate them with enough force to actually knock the minifigures off. So you can actually simulate your own battles. If you're playing with a friend, you can try to angle your figure to knock the other person's off first, and while they do come off very easily, you probably will only get 1 or 2 good hits in before knocking off one or both of the figures. It is a fun game that is somewhat reminiscent of the older Spinjitzu spinner battles, where the entire point was to knock your opponent's figure off the board. Moving onwards, there is another feature as well. This staircase here is actually a really fun play feature, where pulling a red lever on the back of the set causes these stairs to collapse inwards, essentially making the minifigures slide down and stumble forwards, where you can attack a lot easily. This is a really simple function that honestly works a lot better than many other functions that LEGO has tried to do like this. A lot of the times there are a lot of issues by making these stairs collapse because we've gotten it in other LEGO sets because there's too much friction on the side of the tiles, in which case when you pull out the base that's supporting them, they just don't really tilt all too easily. They did attempt this feature in the Airjitsu Battleground set, which was another Ninjago set we got for the second wave of LEGO Skybound as well as Day of the Departed. However, that feature didn't work nearly as well as this one, because due to the way this is assembled, you can very easily cause these stairs to collapse and lock back into place extremely easily just by turning that lever back and forth. It works very well. They've managed to iron out all of the issues that the previous iterations of this function had, and I'm very happy about that because when it works, it is a really fun feature, although it does rarely work in official LEGO sets until this one. There is one more play feature here, which allows you to pull a rod, causing a giant bell to topple over, and I guess that is supposed to knock over some figures along with it. Perhaps if you have one figure right at the base of the bell who's kind of just standing there, and I'm using Jay as kind of the hitting point here, you can pull the lever back and launch the bell forwards, causing them to topple over. It's a fun function. It's nothing super crazy, but it's just a good one to be able to add some dynamic movement to the set itself. And overall, that's really all you can do with the entire set. I guess this is supposed to be a drum because you have drumsticks. So less of a bell, more of a drum, but you got my point. However, this is a really interesting build because the entire thing is fully modular to some degree, where they're using these double LEGO Technic pin attachment pieces, which we've previously seen them use for a modular building system in LEGO Monkey Kid, to allow you to actually attach up each of these modules onto the much larger $250 set, where surprisingly a lot of the configuration does stay the same. You basically just take this, use the pins on the back of this part of the structure to attach onto the larger temple, and then you have these other side components being attached up on the sides. It's a very simple transformation. It isn't anything super crazy, but it's a nice and charming one, and I do appreciate the cross-set congruency to allow you to play around with the sets as one. Now, the main centerpiece of the set is this massive statue, and I don't really know who this is supposed to represent, whether it be Sensei Wu or maybe the first Spinjitzu master, but what they've done is they've kind of tried to render an actual minifigure in a smaller statue form. It ends up looking a little goofy to me. I don't know if I'm 100% sold on how exactly they pulled it off. I feel like the proportions are just a little bit too cartoonish compared to a normal LEGO minifigure proportion to take it seriously, but it is a nice and charming thing. I would have liked it at a slightly bigger scale, but it is what it is. I do like how they actually have the arms, which are on the mixel joints or mini ball joints, to allow you to angle them in different ways, and this set does introduce a gold version of a brand new mold they've created for this sub-theme of Ninjago. It's a baby dragon. It's also used in transparent orange for the source dragon spirits, all the way when we get to the larger dragon set, and it appears one more time in gold in the larger tournament temple city set, so it's nice to also have congruency where these two sets are concerned. Otherwise, the set itself is honestly not the most exciting build. It's not super substantial, although I do like all the play features factored in. But again, as I mentioned, the really strong part of the set is the minifigure selection. And again, we'll be also diving into these minifigures in much greater detail when it comes to the individual minifigure video, which I'll be putting out very shortly. But it is, again, very cool to get 3 exclusive figures, and my mind was blown when I saw that this set included Tox, the original Elemental Master of Poison. That is a fairly deep cut for LEGO, but I'm very happy they managed to include her because she's been completely redesigned for Ninjago Dragons Rising, utilizing the X-Men 97 Stormhair in lime green, which actually appeared in a January LEGO Friends set, so they didn't even need to recolor it for this minifigure, but it looks super cool. Love that she has exclusively printed legs, torso, and head. Just a really well-designed minifigure. And of course, Evil J. Always very cool when we get an evil version of one of the ninja, sporting the new armor piece in black, which is the only minifigure that has it. This is a really cool design, and I definitely can't wait to see how that plays out in the show. The only minifigure that's a bit of a miss for me personally is Cinder in his smoke form here, and honestly, I feel like that's just because the Shatter Spin armor mold is honestly not my favorite piece. I much prefer how it looks in the show when it actually appears to be like quote-unquote dual molded. One part of it is dark blue, one part is silver. There's kind of a red ruby in the center of the chest, and for whatever reason, they don't take advantage of the red blood drop symbol, or maybe that's the blood moon symbol, for the official variation of the minifigure. They instead have you rotate the armor around so you don't actually see the special marked detailing on the center of the chest, and I do feel like that also takes away from the figure itself. So overall, I guess it's cool to get a transparent black arm in the new trans black color because we haven't really seen that before. But this is not one of the more exciting minifigures, and I do feel like the purple throws off the color scheme quite a lot. I definitely miss the old outfit that Cinder had, which I think was a lot more drippy in my opinion. But now, let's move on to the next most expensive set in the wave, which goes all the way from $50 to $90. And before we do that, just a quick note on the value of this set. Piece count-wise, I guess this is worth $50. In fact, some could argue it could be worth $60. But $50 for what is basically just
kind of a display stand. Yes, there are different functions in it, but you're really buying it specifically for the minifigures. It does feel a little high to me. I definitely feel like this would have been a lot better at, say, 45. 40 would have been about right, I think, for something like this. They could have just not included one of the figures. Like, we could have gone without maybe Sora or without one of the figures, not one of the exclusive ones, but just removing one of the figures here, I think, would have gone a long way in making this just feel a lot cheaper and a lot better deal. But $50 is a bit of a hard pill to swallow, and I do think that will mean that this minifigure and some of the other exclusive figures like Evil J will end up being pretty expensive on the aftermarket unless they include them in European magazines in the future. That's all for the set, but let's move onwards to the $90 Ninja Combo vehicles. Okay, so here is 71820. It's the Ninja Team Combo vehicles. And this retails for $90 and comes with 576 pieces. Clearly, it's calling back to other combo vehicles we've gotten in the past from Ninjago, like the Ultra Stealth Raider and the Ultrasonic Raider. And as you can see, they actually have a different lineup of minifigures included in the set this time. Lloyd, Nia, Cole, and Sora make up the entire vehicle itself. And for the bad guys, we get 2 Wolf Mask Warriors. One of them is a standard one that we get throughout many of the other sets in the wave with the 2 giant claws behind it. And the other one is actually a unique one who has a unique element in only this set, a red version of the Shatterspin armor. Does this mean that the Wolf Mask Warriors will actually be learning Shatterspin themselves? Who knows? I thought you had to be an elemental master to do it, and it might just be something that appears in the sets, but it is labeled as a Wolf Mask General, so there is that as an option to include in the set. Setting aside the figures though, the main point of the entire build is the fact that this is a combo vehicle. So, well, let's see how exactly that works. The first thing you need to know is that there is this extra block that, somewhat frustratingly, has literally nowhere to go once you finish building. You put this together, and you kind of set it aside, and I've stuck it on the back in a sort of bootleg manner just to keep it with the set, but it is a huge missed opportunity, in my opinion, to not have a dedicated place on the model. Even on the underside, there are literally clips on it. It could have been super easy to put it on the underside, but alas, it sits on the side. But the way this works is that the first vehicle that detaches is Sora's glider here. I hesitate to call this a vehicle. I mean, I guess in the strictest sense of the word, it is some sort of flyer. But I think that for this, the function just completely overtook the form here, because as you can see, they've actually set up an axle element and a pin element in different colors on the front to make the building experience easier so you know which one to put where. But because of that, Sora is now flying around a mismatched color piece, and I feel like that is very, very strange to me. If you mount the minifigure on the back, it looks even more awkward because she is so much larger than the flyer, and I don't know, this one's just, it kind of feels like one of the worst Nexo Knights side builds that you would get. Like, there was a wave period in LEGO Nexo Knights when we kept on getting vehicles that would split in half for the Knights, and as they got smaller and smaller, the vehicles that actually split in two would get lamer and lamer, and this feels like the kind of ultimate expression of that. So I don't know, it's a glider. I guess it is a fourth vehicle, but really the main point is to split this up into 3 vehicles. So the way this works is that, somewhat obviously, as you can probably tell, the 2 motorcycles that come on the sides split off, and there you go. There is no other transformation made to the Lloyd vehicle. It basically is just as it is. Unfortunately, because of that, you have all of these exposed pins, the blue pins, the black axles, light gray clips, and then exposed Technic joints on the back as well, exposed Technic axles, and if you kind of ignore that, I think this is an okay vehicle. At least it's trying to do something unique for Ninjago. It is doing something in a color scheme they haven't really done before for a half-track vehicle. I don't know, though. It's kind of funky looking. I'm not the biggest fan, and the construction kind of feels like it came out of 2012. Like, this feels like the Ultra Stealth Raider, but not even in a good way, like in a bad way, in that LEGO building techniques have really progressed a lot from this, and you just have a Technic beam at the front to attach things, and I guess they're working with a lower budget, but it's also $90 for less than 600 pieces, so I can't even say, like, okay, if this was $60, all right, I get it, right? $60, your brief is to make something that splits up into 4 vehicles. That's kind of tricky, especially making it sizable. But 90, and this is, I don't know, maybe I'm being a little too negative on this one, but I am not the biggest fan of this vehicle. It just feels kind of lackluster.
And the sad thing is that this is like the main bulk of what you build. Like this is most of the set. And then the other two vehicles are these motorcycles. And I guess the motorcycles are fine. They don't really do anything new. I keep going back to the Ultra Stealth Raider, but I love the Ultra Stealth Raider because the front treads are the motorcycles and the tracks are actually the front part of the motorcycles. That's unique. That's something different. But here they're just regular motorcycles and they're super basic, and they basically are just identical builds other than the fact that a couple colors have been swapped. So one of them has azure for Nia, one of them is orange for Cole, and this does have an additional feature, so I do appreciate the inclusion of that, where you can take this extra block piece that I showed at the beginning of the video, clip it in, and now you have a dual vehicle. So this is now a four-wheeled vehicle. You can actually place Nia and Cole in the vehicle and put their weapons on the rack itself, so you can actually attach their weapons here so they can be clipped on while they're not in use. Boy, that would be awesome if you could do that when they were riding the main vehicle and not just set this weapon piece aside as a weapons rack. But it's something, you know, actually this feature, like setting all this aside, this is kind of nice. Like I don't mind this. This is kind of cool. Like I like how it has the big wheels on the back, the small wheels at the front. It's like a dual motorcycle, but they're combined. This could have been a totally cool set. I would have been totally cool with that. But alas, it is not, and you just have nowhere to put this very awkward block that you just kind of set aside. There isn't even an easy way to make it stand up because it has, rather strangely, one grill piece on one side and then no grill piece on the other side. So you can't put it here because it'll like fall backwards, and you can't put it up front because it'll fall forwards. I don't know, it's kind of a weird thing. It's just a lot of weird oddities to the set. But anyway, here are the four vehicles split up. It's the combo vehicles after all, so they just come together. No crazy transformation, they literally just clip together. And in the past, we have had some interesting mechanisms. We've had wings deploy. We have had the entire front cockpit flip forwards and backwards for some of the other vehicles. But we don't really have any of that here. It is just basically what you see is what you get. The four components of it split up. And I don't know, I hate to be so negative on this section of the review, and don't worry, because the next three sets we're going to see are like the best Ninjago sets ever, so, you know, it all balances out in the end. But I feel like for $90, not only is this not a great set, like, it's okay, it's fun to play with, I guess, for kids, but it's not the most visually interesting thing. It feels a little haphazard, it feels kind of jumbled together. But it also is very overpriced. $90 is flat out ridiculous for a set like this, and I'm thankful that LEGO sent this to me for free, and I am grateful for that, but I will not let that influence the honesty of my reviews, and I really do feel like it's important to call something out when I see it, and I am calling this out as feeling very overpriced. It joins a long line of incredibly overpriced sets we've gotten this year. Funnily enough, many at around the $90 price point, like the Hoopty from Marvels, the X-Men Jet from X-Men 97, and now this. Just an unfortunate trend where some of these larger, expensive sets just don't really offer that much for the amount that you pay. All in all, I feel like a $90 Ninja Team combo vehicle set could have been much better than this, and that's why I'm a little disappointed, because the promise of something like that is a lot more interesting, infinitely more interesting, than what we eventually got. But hey, you know what? Enough of the negativity. Let's now move on to what I think is not only the best set of the wave, but a contender for one of the best Ninjago sets of all time. So let's get this off the table and move on to that.
So this is it, Cole's Titan Dragon Mech, which is, and I keep saying this, in my opinion, not just the best set of the wave, not just the best Ninjago mech ever, which is already saying a lot because we've gotten a lot of great mechs from Ninjago, but the best LEGO mech ever. And there are a number of reasons as to why I can back that up. So, first of all, I can imagine that the color scheme of integrating the dark gray, black, and orange of Cole with the traditional white of all of the other Titan mechs may not be everyone's cup of tea. You know what? I get it. When I first took it out of the box, I was a little thrown off by the white too. But I have to say it's honestly come to really grow on me because it really does kind of feel like armor that the mech is wearing. It's really only centered around the lower legs and the lower arms as well as the head. And in the little spots it is used throughout the rest of the body, it really does feel like it has been intentionally placed as color blocking pieces of armor. So with that in mind, and obviously keeping the congruency of every single Titan mech from Ninjago integrating white into the color scheme somehow, I think it kind of makes sense that this is a full-on member of the Titan mech family, and the color scheme really isn't as jarring as it seems, especially once you get used to it. So this was, I believe, we don't know for sure yet, but I'm pretty sure this was designed by Neek, aka Tooth Dominoes, who's kind of the mech master of LEGO. He previously designed my previous favorite Ninjago mech and best mech ever, which was Zane's Titan mech, and I didn't know if you could top that one, but somehow he's managed to do it with this, and this, it's not even a competition. This just obliterates my previous best Ninjago mech out of the water, no question. And I think really the most important thing I want to showcase here is the articulation. So, articulation-wise, this is, I believe, the most amount of articulation we've ever seen from any LEGO mech pretty much ever. So I'm going to start off with the easy part, the head. You know, you can move the head up and down. It's mounted on a mini ball joint. So yeah, you know what, standard head, move up and down, you get the point. The wings can be moved on the back here and can flap back and forth for the dragon wings. Normally, I'm not the biggest fan of it when LEGO does wings for winged characters with just a ton of blades instead of with a vinyl piece or a cloth piece, but it's honestly not that big of a deal here because I feel like it is a mech, so some amount of mechanical detail makes sense, and you also can angle each of the blades of the wings backwards and forwards. So if you want to angle them backwards, it almost feels like this mech is diving or swooping downwards. There's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do with it. So lots of fun posability options with the wings. But getting the wings out of the way, let's take a look at the arms. So the arms are mounted on the slightly newer style of articulatable joint that was just somewhat recently introduced. So you can move it up and down, back and forth, so you can kind of swing it like so. The only time where articulation is a bit of an issue for the arms are because the shoulders go so high up, and that's for aesthetic reasons. Obviously, there is some compromise between form and function here. It is a little bit hard to get them in certain interesting poses because they do hit the wings. It's not a big deal though, because there are alternatives, because not only can you move the arms, splay them out and up and down, but you just reattach that part there, but you can also rotate the arms side to side and outwards, which is absolutely insane. I mean, that's pretty crazy to see them actually have this amount of individual movement for the outside part of the arms, and then for the elbows, you can bend them, curl them up completely like so, because they're not just mounted on one single 90-degree joint. They are mounted on two different joint segments, which is something that you see in high-end posable mechs. Like if you buy like a Hot Toys Hulkbuster, you see that kind of joint movement to really get the most movement out of the joints that you can. Unfortunately, because of that, I don't know what's up with the way that the pieces are set up, but the more you move it around, the more likely it is that the piece on the bottom of the joint there does tend to fall off, but it's not that big of a deal. You can just snap it back on and keep going. And then the individual hand itself is mounted on a Bionicle style ball joint, which is really great for articulation. Really, the only downside here is that because the sword is so massive, it is utilizing a golden recolor of the Dune Ornithopter blade as the sword, which is, I think, the biggest sword we've ever seen in a LEGO Ninjago mech. I think it actually beats Jay's Titan mech. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and it does seem to beat it. But at certain angles, the sword will maybe flop downwards. It's actually doing a remarkably good time now that I'm showcasing it on video. But depending on the way that you actually have this angled up, sometimes the sword will droop down and it definitely doesn't hold its pose all the time. But given that it is such a large object, it does a lot better than I would have imagined for it being able to hold the sword in different poses, which I really do appreciate. Now, moving downwards from the arms, you also, obviously you can move each of the individual fingers as well, which are even more points for articulation. Moving on downwards, you have waist articulation, so you can twist the waist back and forth. You can actually rotate the waist 360 degrees, so if for whatever reason you do want to, you can spin the entire model around, so that's a cool little extra added feature. Oh man, then we get to the legs, and this kind of blew me away when it came to the legs. I don't think any other LEGO mech does this. But for the knee joint, they have done something pretty revolutionary when it comes to LEGO mechs. And that is the addition of sliding knee panels. Where as you can see, not only do you have triple Bionicle ball joint rotation on the knees,
but you also have an armor panel that slides back and forth, which is again only something you typically see in super high-end mechs, in some of the really most expensive, realistic, posable types of builds. You see these sliding panels to achieve the maximum amount of articulation. But yeah, this Ninjago mech also has it, which is kind of wild. Now, not only does it have that, but obviously you have the standard movement of the legs. You can move them back and forth like so. You can splay them outwards, but you also can rotate the legs. It's just kind of new for LEGO. I think the Titan XP mech from the LEGO Creator line back in 04 did this, but it was using much inferior joints, so that one was not fun to pose, and this one is a lot more stable. But also, the coolest thing that this mech does that's so awesome is that they've brought back that Bionicle piston piece. I mean, it never really was gone. We've seen it in sets throughout the years, but they've brought it back as an actual piston, which we did see as part of Kai's Climber mech earlier this year. But they've added a double piston mode where you can actually rotate the ankle of the mech back and forth in all sorts of different poses, making this one of the strongest ankles LEGO has ever made for a single LEGO set. And it's honestly something that they kind of should... I mean, I want to upgrade some of my Bionicle creations here to use this technique. That's how good it is. The ankles are then mounted on mini ball joints, adding in even more articulation and adding in even more friction to allow you to achieve the craziest poses that any LEGO mech has really ever been able to achieve as an official set. Oh, and you can move the ankle armor up and down as well. Because of that, you basically can take the mech and have it go into a full-on 90-degree knee angle pose and keep the other leg perfectly straight. And due to the magic of articulation, you can actually get that to work in a pose where both feet are firmly planted on the ground. That is absolutely crazy to me that you can actually accomplish this. For years, people have been complaining about mech articulation, saying that, oh, well, LEGO mechs look cool and all, but you never can articulate them. Well, I don't want to hear any of the complaints about that for this, because you can achieve what I thought that LEGO would never do in an official mech. Now, to give some background, LEGO actually purposefully limits the amount of articulation they give mechs because of customer complaints. Back in the days of LEGO Exoforce, when they were making smaller mechs than this, but they were making them have these crazy points of articulation, but unfortunately they just weren't the most stable and they would tend to fall over all the time. And pieces would fall off and kids would get frustrated, and because of that direct feedback, LEGO mechs now are a lot more stiff and they're a lot easier for kids to just plunk down. However, clearly, they've found the solution to that, and they've overcome the parts limitations, not by making a new joint element, but by using pieces that have been in the LEGO system for years and just using them in better ways and just coming up with creative building techniques that pass LEGO's rigorous quality and test standards in order to make a mech that is aesthetically pleasing, sturdy, fully posable, and large. And the combination of all of those things is truly a feat of engineering. When I met Neek Tooth Dominoes back in September of last year, he told me he was working on his magnum opus. He couldn't tell me what it was, but he told me he was working on his magnum opus, the best set that he's ever made, and he said it was kind of the culmination of his years working as a LEGO designer. And I think it's pretty clear what that set is now, because this is absolutely genius. It is a work of art. It is truly a marvel of engineering. It is really his Pietà, his Holy Grail, his Rachmaninoff's third. This is the best LEGO mech ever made. It blows every mech they've done before out of the water completely, and I only hope that other future LEGO mechs can live up to the same standards, the incredibly, almost impossibly high standards set by this model, because this has set a very high bar for future mechs, and I'm very worried that now LEGO can put out an amazing mech tomorrow, and if it doesn't have the detail this has, the articulation, the size, the posability, I would go, that's cool, but it's no Cole's Titan Dragon mech. This is the new gold standard for mechs. So congratulations to all the designers involved. Congratulations to LEGO for pulling this off. And after the heaping disappointment of the $90 set that this is, to get a set that's this good for $10 more for over 1,000 pieces is so great. And now that being said, it's not perfect. My one complaint about it has to be that why does it only include one minifigure? Maybe that was their way of saying, look, the set is so good, you're getting it for the set and not the minifigure, but I really hope, I'm very worried, like my fear is that consumers will be like, oh, this is a bad deal, $100, only one minifigure, what a bad deal, I'm not gonna buy the set. And the set doesn't do well, and LEGO will take the wrong lessons from it and say like, okay, well maybe people didn't like how complex it was, or didn't like that it was a Cole-focused set, or that it had all this complexity and articulation, and that's not true. People love it. I hope people will love it. So it is a little unfortunate that this set is not set up for 100% success because it only has one single minifigure, a very nice exclusive minifigure, may I add, a very anime-inspired kind of Neon Genesis Evangelion type of thing that you would see in anime for Cole's mech suit. But only one figure, they should have included a couple of things for it to fight, but again, it's not really the focus of the set. The focus of the set is to give us the best mech they've ever done out of LEGO, and boy did they deliver. That's enough I have to say about this mech. I will gush about it a lot more in the individual review that will be coming out pretty soon, but now let's move on to the next set. And then moving on from the mech, we have what is another absolute banger of a set in the wave. This is 71822, the Source Dragon of Motion, the largest LEGO Ninjago dragon ever, coming in at 1,716 pieces. It also comes with 6 little Source Dragon spirits, which are all the new baby dragon mold, casted in transparent orange instead of gold this time. I find it a little bit interesting if they are supposed to represent the other Source Dragons, why they're not all sorts of different colors, like trans green, trans yellow, so on and so forth, but I think this is alright for having it be a fire-oriented or motion-oriented set, and it also comes with a ton of minifigures. You've got Lord Raz, Jordana, one of the charged-up Wolf Mask warriors, as well as Aaron, Wildfire, and Kai representing the good guys. So a pretty even matchup. Now, the actual story behind this set is something that is pretty unclear. The box art showcases Lord Raz jumping up and trying to strike the gong atop the dragon's back. It also shows that in certain scenes, maybe some of the ninja are riding the dragon, maybe they're trying to free the dragon, or the dragon's turned against them. This is a very, very interesting set, and the back of the box offers no explanation as to the madness going on. There are all sorts of characters jumping around in different positions. It's very hard to tell who are the good guys and bad guys here when it comes to the dragon, and I think that's really interesting. They really are doing their best to hide spoilers in the marketing of the set, and that's something I do appreciate. But let's talk about the set itself, because really, that's the main thing I want to focus on here. Setting the minifigures aside, I really want to pull in on the amount of effort and detail that went into making this dragon. Much like the mech, we'll start off with articulation. The waist itself can articulate. They've actually recolored the ratchet joint piece in dark red and red to allow you to use it more seamlessly within the model itself, which is really, really cool. It's a little bit of a shame that they didn't actually use the recently recolored LEGO Dungeons & Dragons dark red dragon wing joint pieces that they literally use here in black, but you know, maybe I don't know what the development cycle of that set was versus this one, and they might have just decided that, oh, we did it for that set, but it wasn't ready in time for this one. But all that being said, and regardless, you can actually articulate the wings, and these are some of the most articulatable wings we've ever seen out of a LEGO Ninjago Dragon, because you can, of course, flap them up and down, so they can move up and down, very, very standard for a Ninjago Dragon. You can also rotate them, so you can rotate them forwards and backwards, and because of that, you can achieve all sorts of interesting poses by having the wings splayed forwards or splayed backwards. But what the coolest part to me is that they've included a joint for you to rotate the wings forwards and backwards on a ratchet joint. So the amount of articulation that this alone delivers is astounding, and it makes it the dragon whose wings you can articulate the most out of any other past Ninjago dragon. This is absolutely crazy. If you want the wings folded up against the back, you can simply bend them back downwards, and then all of a sudden, the dragon's wings just go and roll across the back, making it feel like it is more in a standard kind of standing stance. If you want to have them furl outwards, you can first bend them outwards like this and then use them to flap outwards, really showcasing the impressive wingspan of the entire creature. And if you want to put it in attack mode, you can maybe have some of the wings arcing forwards. The amount of stuff that you can actually do with this dragon in terms of just the posability of the wings is astounding. And it is just so much fun to pose the wings in all sorts of different directions, to have them like going all the way to the back. Like, look at this. This is crazy, the amount of stuff that you can do with the wings. And I just love that you can get that much character out of the dragon like this. The tail itself is making use of the larger ratchet piece, so you can move it up and down. You can also rotate it side to side, and also you can swing each of the mixel or mini ball joints back and forth, so that does add a lot of extra articulation to the tail. That one's a little bit more standard compared to what we're used to. And the tip of the tail is this really nice recolored Ninjago crystallized blade in trans orange and dark red, which just looks so good for the dragon. Albeit, I will say it looks a little better on the box renders than it does in person, because the base looks dark red and the end looks trans orange, but they did the best they could given their molding capabilities. The head itself is also mounted on one of those specialized, slightly newer action figure ratchet joint elements. However, it is pretty much fixed due to the way that the neck is made, so you can't actually bend the head up or down that easily. However, what you can do is rotate the head back and forth, so you can kind of have the head swing backwards and forwards like so. So that is a nice amount of articulation you can get with the neck. And then you have another ball joint for the neck segment of the neck here, so you can actually have that be achieving even more angles. And finally, the final part of the head itself is mounted on a ball joint, so you can get all sorts of crazy expressions out of this dragon, and the mouth opening and closing, of course. Now, the very interesting part of this dragon is the massive throne on the top. Now, my theory is that the Source Dragon of Motion is not actually Lord Raz's master. I believe his master might be the Source Dragon of Strength. However, Lord Raz has devised an evil way to control the Source Dragon of Motion, and basically to have it be forced to do his evil bidding. And that is when he strikes the Gong of Shattering up at the top here. Maybe that will force it to actually bend to his will. Who knows what that actually is going to be? For all I know, this is one evil dragon here, and this dragon is just purely evil and wants to take over the world and is aligned with Raz. But I don't know. Who knows? We'll see. Motion has been pretty much like the quote-unquote good guy element or parent element that we've seen in part 1 of season 2. Strength is actually the bad guy element. Even the Source Dragon of Strength, whose voice we've only heard, was the one kind of trying to convince the other Source Dragons not to help Lloyd. So, I don't know. I'm feeling a little suspicious of the Source Dragon of Strength, and Raz says strength is the most important thing, and his master taught him that. So, I don't know. I don't think the Source Dragon of Motion would tell Raz that strength, an opposing element, is the most important thing. Who knows, but that's what I think this is. Now, the really cool thing is that the whole throne can be removed very easily with a clip mechanism. You just have these clip onwards. It's super simple. And then you can go ahead and remove the chains around the dragon's neck and actually go ahead and quote unquote free the dragon. So with the throne removed, you actually have kind of the base form of the dragon, and the throne kind of acts as its own individual thing. But here, this is basically what the dragon is supposed to look like without the throne attached. Because of this does actually allow you to get a lot more craziness done with the wing articulations and flapping back and forth, now that there is no more evil throne atop it. And one thing I didn't mention in the articulation are the legs, where, as you can see, they are pretty much fixed at certain angles, so that is a little bit unfortunate, but because it is so big, I think they had to fix them at these exact angles, otherwise it would really just tear itself apart. But you can move the back legs back and forth like so. The back feet are mounted on ball joints, and then you can do the same with the front legs. Pretty good degree of motion here, and the feet are also mounted on ball joints with individual toes being articulated. No knee joints for the dragon, but that's sort of to be expected given how big this is. I feel like knee joints would actually be more of an inconvenience that it would be worth because there's just so much weight here. It is incredibly heavy to just move this around. So definitely makes sense, but with the throne removed, I almost like it even better because this is just so swooshable. You can have it be flying through the air. You can have the legs be folded backwards as it soars and flies, and it's just so cool. Cannot wait to have this hanging from my ceiling, but before I hang it, I'm going to leave it around for a few days and maybe a few weeks just to have it playable, and so I can just pick it up and swoosh it around when I want to. It's just so much fun, and the wingspan is so huge. You can really accomplish all sorts of crazy stuff with it. Now, overall, I do want to kind of zoom back out and talk about the composition of the dragon. The detailing is honestly phenomenal. You have a golden underbelly, a dark red transitioning to bright red on the top. A lot of effort has been made into making this color scheme make sense with the dragon itself. The only thing that I feel like is maybe a bit of a downgrade compared to some of the other dragons we've gotten, like Lloyd's legendary dragon, is, I don't know, I'm just not the biggest fan of this bottom jaw piece. It feels too simplified, having it be just one single gold color. They've done really good molded jaws in the past with actual colored teeth, with the teeth being colored white, and I feel like it would have been a lot better if they just used one of those pieces instead, but it is what it is, and it's not that big of a deal. You can always change it out if you want to, but the one thing I do like is the inclusion of the new climber hook pieces as horns, because I feel like that is a very nice part usage for the horns of this beast. It just looks so cool with the horns attached and actually acting as the horns of the dragon, so that is very cool. And I also like how the saddle here, or really the throne saddle, is super easy to pop on and pop off no matter exactly what configuration you want to set it up as. And the throne is really easy to just mount back on the dragon because then it's ready to do Lord Raz's evil bidding. So altogether, given everything that you get in a set like this, this is easily, not just in my opinion, one of the better sets of the wave, but I do actually think this might be in contention for best Ninjago dragon ever. I'm gonna have to take down my favorite, Lloyd's legendary dragon, and see how it stacks up compared to this. And there are some other really good dragons there. I've actually done a top 10 best Ninjago dragons video if you want to check that out. But this is pretty good. It's really solid. It is, in my opinion, a lot better than the previous Ultra Super Dragon that we got, the Lloyd's Golden Dragon, which I think had a lot of flaws given the price tag and given what it was. Not a bad set, but definitely one that's kind of blown out of the water by this. And this, compared to something like Firstborn, just, it's not a competition. This is just leagues and leagues better than what we got back in 2019 with the Hunted Wave. So overall, really solid set. I feel like it is also really fair for the price, especially when you compare it to some of the other really expensive Ninjago dragons. Like that Golden Ultra Dragon was, I believe, around the same price as this, but had so much fewer pieces, under 1,000. This one has over 1,500. It's $150. Seems totally fair to me, and just so cool and fun to pose around and get all sorts of crazy poses out of it. I mean, you can go wild with the poses here, and it will keep its poses. That's all I have to say for this one, so now let's move on to the final set and the largest set of the wave. Okay, so here it is, the biggest set of the wave, 71814 Tournament Temple City. This comes with 3,484 pieces and 13 minifigures. Well, technically 14, although one of them is hidden away in the structure. This is kind of a reimagining of if LEGO were to tackle something like the Temple of Erjitsu today, how would they do it? And this is the answer. Again, it's not like the other Ninjago City sets where it's a modular building. Instead, this is a full-on organic landscape, which hides a lot more secrets than you might imagine. Now, obviously, the build is broken up into multiple sections. You start off by building this large, rocky base, and then you work way over to one of the side buildings here in the form of the blacksmith shop. You then move on to the gateway here, which does connect up to the other $50 tournament training ground set. And then you have this little interesting outpost where I'm not really sure what this is supposed to be. There's no interior detail here. It literally is just a little home for one of the characters. And then finally, you culminate all of your building experience into the temple itself, which is actually built using very similar building techniques to the previous Temple of Erjitsu, even using some of the same pieces that they used for the floor to kind of split it open. But obviously, in a much more refined manner, and in a way that makes use of all of the modern pieces introduced since that original set's introduction. To me, this is again like reliving Ninjago's greatest hits, a fully detailed temple in a gorgeous natural landscape, but they have just absolutely made this a lot more aesthetically pleasing and a lot more complete as a playset than what they've done previously. Now, the first thing I want to talk about here is this little blimp. I really like this. I have no idea if it's going to appear in the show, and the last time we got this, it didn't outside of an intro in Skybound, but it's just a little tiny vehicle for people to fly in. I don't know who this belongs to or if it's just supposed to be part of the decor, but I really like it. It's just a small representation of a blimp that is really cool and just adds some character to the build itself. The next small build that you actually put together is this dragon, which is a really interesting one. It's dark orange in coloration, which is not a color that we've really ever seen for a Ninjago dragon. It is reusing the baby or young Ryu headpiece in dark orange, which is pretty interesting to see them make another usage out of that piece. And it looks to be somewhat fall leaf themed, like there are leaf patterns on the side of the eyes, even the scales look like leaves, and the entire dragon is decorated with leaves. So I'm not really sure what the story is behind this one, but it is really nice to see, and it is similar to Rontu in the animated show, where it actually has a lantern dangling off of one of the horns there, which I think is a really nice touch. It's about as simple of a dragon as you can get, and you really just don't have a ton to do with it. It's just using the blade-like wings to fly around, but it's a nice and charming one, and I love the introduction of dark orange as an actual color for the Ninjago dragon portfolio, just really setting this one aside from the standard elemental ones that we've seen in the past. The dragon also presumably hides in the cave structure here underneath the model itself, and it's really cool how you can actually fit the entire dragon underneath the model, making it feel like it's somewhat crawled out of the cave itself, somewhat akin to the hunted base that we got. Now, setting aside the minifigures, and again, we'll do a full-on dedicated look at all the minifigures in a video coming out very, very soon, because I want to spend a lot of time talking about the figures, especially the return of Pale Men here. That is awesome to see. But I think we should just take a look at the main build as we zoom into the details of the set itself. Again, the rock work is absolutely phenomenal. It's something that you would see out of a Lego Monkey Kid set, and I mean that in the best way possible. And I just love the amount of detail and functions that you can get out of the build. We'll start off by rotating it around, where you can actually see the interior of the build itself, where there's actually a lot of really interesting and fun scenes to be found on the inside of the cave. Of course, the inside of the temple has a ton of great scenes as well, and each of the buildings, aside from this mysterious building here, have something going on inside of them that make them unique and have individual functions. Starting off with the actual interior of the cave, we're going to take a closer look here, and what's really cool is that inside there actually is a bit of a statue. It does actually have the Lily hairpiece, Cole's mother's hairpiece, which I don't know if it's going to be an intentional reference or if that's just another gray hairpiece they used, but it's reusing the Lego Lord of the Rings statue print for the torso, which I think is very cool that they did not license lock that. It also has a nice sticker of Cole's Titan dragon mech adorned with some candles below it, so who knows what the story is behind that. And there's even a little campfire and some shish kebabs cooking around the campfire near the other side of the underground area, which is kind of nice, making the space feel a little bit more lived in. Moving onwards to the side blacksmith building here, this is a really nice one because this actually has a couple of different play features. Rotating the gear on the back of the model allows you to actually spin the water wheel back and forth, and as an added bonus, they actually encourage you to place minifigures that are doing battle on top of the two platforms here. So the platforms are actually hit as the water wheel spins, and you can kind of use that if you actually orient them right and don't get them to hit the side of the wall to do battle with each other as the whole water wheel is spinning. So here you can see that we've got Wildfire and Jordana swinging back and forth, going into battle on top of the water wheel until one of them eventually wins the fight and falls over. These extra additional pieces have the added benefit of actually being there to allow you to stop the water wheel from preventing the secondary function in here, which is a little lever that allows you to swing a hammer on an anvil back and forth. It's a function that we've seen a lot of times from Lego Castle in the past. I believe it first appeared in some of the Lego Kingdom sets, if I recall correctly, and actually even way before that, if I remember. So they've been using this castle function a lot, but it is nice to see, and they do actually prevent you from spinning the wheel the wrong way by the addition of these special platforms on the top, which are admittedly a little bit clunky. They kind of feel a bit awkward how the water wheel has to jump on top of these, but I get why they put them in, and it is a nice extra play feature. The entire roof of this section does come off to reveal some living quarters inside. What's really nice is they've included as Easter eggs in the set the microfigure version of Kai, which is just a really nice detail because they're continuing with giving us microfigures. We got Jay and Cole in Ninjago City Markets, and now we have Kai. And they actually also have a sticker of a Ninjago playing card in the JZX form, which is really cool, kind of tying back to the original spinner cards. Now, one of my favorite parts about this model is this side model includes an exclusive minifigure component, where, believe it or not, I was shocked when I saw this. I was not expecting this at all. But they've recolored the incredible Climber armor piece in brown and gunmetal gray, giving you yet another color variation, which is just super useful because this is a much more grounded and realistic color that you could use as samurai armor, and I figure that's why they did this. They literally put this piece in so army builders could use it for their own purposes, and I think that is so cool. Kudos to LEGO for doing that, especially because the Climber armor pieces come in all sorts of wacky colors like dark red, dark green, white, and all sorts of stuff like that. It's really cool to get a somewhat realistic, actual Japanese samurai-inspired armor coloration for it. They did not need to do that, but they had the budget to, I guess, dual mold this in another color set, and I'm so glad they did it because that is a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. Slotting the roof back on here, I want to call out some of the really nice building techniques being utilized for the water flow here, where as you can see, the transparent blue pieces are used to actually look like water is being irrigated and corrugated through to spin the water wheel itself. They're using the special blast and burst element to actually make it look like flowing water, which I think is a really nice touch. And overall, just a really nicely built model. There's some charcoal in the form of the Minions hairpiece being used there, so all sorts of really crazy details. And you even have a beautiful fall tree growing over it, which just looks so good. Before we get on to the main temple, I want to spend some time taking a look at this other section here. This section is somewhat of a docks area. You have a very simple sort of crane here which can be raised and lowered, including a box with some special stickers on the sides of it with some Easter eggs hidden inside. There's the usage of the Climber hook pieces to act as ornamental detailings, which I think is a really good touch, and I'm glad they're including them in sets like these. And you could use the Climber hooks to actually slide down the flex tubes here, which is really nice to see that. And then what's really cool is that this entire gate here has a baby dragon piece mounted on it in gold, acting as an ornamental design, looking really cool. And of course, this is the part of the build that splits open, allowing for Technic pins to open up and actually showcase a combination with the other set here, which is the $50 tournament training grounds. So let's actually take a look at what that looks like because it is a really nice play feature. And what you can do is that you separate out this statue of Wu here and you stick that on to this end. You then separate out the large drum and stick that on to the other end on the front, and now this kind of leads to some interesting components. The color scheme doesn't match up perfectly because these are supposed to be wooden dock elements and these are a lot more built up, but I do like the intent. And then the secret is that right on the base here, there are two tile pieces that are purposefully only held on by one stud. You set those aside and then you can connect this to place the battle arena at the front of the temple itself. Unfortunately, the official combination doesn't show you doing anything with these pieces. However, thankfully, there are enough clips to actually make these pieces attach up. So what I do is I just like to attach this crane on this side right here, and then you attach this walkway piece almost like it's leading into the cave, and I feel like that totally works. And as for what to do with these spare curved pieces, well, there are some exposed elements that you can place them on right alongside the edges of the Wu statue,
building this into a fully complete scene. And this is just so cool. I love that you can do that with this set to make it its own combined build, and I just love it when LEGO does modular stuff like this. So I was overjoyed to see that as a feature, and I'm very, very, very happy they did that because I feel like that elevates both sets and makes it feel like a more complete scene where you actually can have battles playing out within this particular area of the build itself. But I've actually inadvertently triggered one of the extra action features here, and let me just showcase that one more time. There's a clever action feature right here where pressing down on one of these stone structures causes these stalactites to fall and collapse on anyone who is unsuspectingly wandering underneath these spikes here. It's a very simple feature. They're just mounted on one stud, so when you push down here, they fall off very easily, but it's a nice one. It's a really nice function to add on to something like this. And that's not the only hidden part of the set. Moving this back to its original configuration and kind of removing all of these extra components here, we can actually take a look at the next part of the build, which is this particular section of the rockwork. And now you may be wondering, well, isn't this just a regular piece of rockwork? What is so special? But there's actually a really nice hidden secret here, where there's actually a secret actuator on the back of the model, where if you push it forwards, it actually, well, let me push it forward with more strength, causes this rock to pop open, revealing some hidden surprises inside. And unfortunately, those hidden surprises is just one golden machete, so it's not the most interesting or exciting thing, but it is nice because you can actually have it act as a hiding space or conceal something more interesting behind it. And I do like how they're including that as a fun feature of the set, just to add that much more playability into the build itself. Moving on from that though, it's time we take a look at this secondary building here. The roof is removable, as you can see. However, there's literally nothing you can do on the inside. It's really only 4x4 studs wide on the inside, so I guess there just really wasn't any room to do anything on the interior, but I guess this is supposed to be maybe the home of one of the mystery side characters. We do get a brand new character in the set whose role we do not know yet, so maybe that is his home, and to avoid spoilers, they haven't really put anything inside, but it's just another nice side building. Would have been nice to have something in there, like at least, like, I don't know, a chair or a teacup or something. But it's good as is, and I do like, as always, this technique of using the garage door pieces as the curved roof. That's a really nice design. Moving onwards to the interior of this part of the temple, there's a very mysterious staff here that's surrounded by blue and red fire. Could it be like Chen's Staff of Elements? Who knows? We will see, but that is a really nice little accessory there that I'm sure is going to play a very important story role. Up at the second level, there is a training area. You have a universal joint with a punching bag mounted on it, so that's really fun to be able to punch. You've got a little dummy that swings back and forth that the ninja can train on, and then going up one more level, there's some interesting architectural details and accessory details that you wouldn't normally see in a set like this, because you actually have a rotary telephone there. So I'm not really sure what the story is behind that, but it's really interesting seeing that as an accessory in the temple itself. And then you have these portraits of two different mysterious figures, one with a white beard and one that's a bit more mischievous looking with a black hairstyle. No idea what that's supposed to be in universe as of right now because the season hasn't come out yet, but I'm very excited to see what that means. And then finally on the top, you just have a flame as you get to the highest level of the temple itself. Now, one of my favorite details is an absolutely phenomenal gold recolor of the Ninjago Dragon Skull piece from the gimmick sets. I really wish it would do it in white because it would make an amazing skeleton, but gold is also a really cool ornamental color to be used as the actual decal on the top of this temple. Good that they're reusing the gimmick set pieces in different and more interesting ways. And overall, it's really cool to get a temple that is shaped like this. One thing I will say is that obviously this is not fully enclosed, and it is the only minor downside. The temple is left fully open on the back, and obviously that's to allow for play, but I think it would be really cool if Ninjago were to finally commit to actually doing a fully enclosed temple on all the sides, and actually just having each of the layers be lifting up to reveal the interior. Maybe that would be a dream for a future set, but it would have been so cool if this just actually continued all the way around. Still, that being said, I cannot deny the absolute strides of innovation LEGO has made since this and the Temple of Erjitsu, where
The way that they've done the pieces on the curvature of the actual roofing elements is so good. They've actually placed these Unikitty neck pieces in a very interesting manner to allow them to plug the gaps in between the existing hinge components, which is so smart. And I love the usage of the red finger elements as the tips of the temple, really just adding in a lot of character and just an extra added splash of color the temple needs. All in all, big fan of this set. For $250, this is remarkable value at over, 3,484 pieces. So phenomenal value for this set. $250 is so great, and I'm very happy with it. The figure selection is very nice. Awesome to get Mr. Paleback, or the Pale Man, back in minifigure form. Very cool exclusive Temple Guard minifigure. And while most of the other non-civilian characters do appear in the other sets, it's good to get a full complement of a lot of the different members of the ninja team to really pose around and get in fun positions all around the temple itself. I feel like this offers so many different play possibilities for where you want to put the characters, and it's cool to get some new side characters as well that at this moment we know nothing about. But that's all I have to say about the Tournament Temple grounds, or Tournament Temple City here. Now let's zoom out and take a look back again at all of the sets combined, where I share my final thoughts on the wave as a whole. Now with the $250 Tournament Temple City summed up, it's time to step back and re-look at the wave as a whole, where I share my thoughts on what I think about this wave of Ninjago sets in general. Again, I really strongly feel, and you're probably getting this intent from the individual reviews, that this is about 50% of a really good wave, and the other 50% is honestly not that good in my opinion. So, as I said in the individual look, Cole's Titan Dragon mech is easily the best Ninjago mech they've ever done. This absolutely blew my mind when I actually took it out of the box, even more so when I built it and realized just how much articulation they've managed to pack in to the ankles, to the knees, to the rotational limbs on the legs, to being able to move them back and forth and all the way around. Just completely crazy, defied all expectations for what I would have wanted this set to be. So this is easily the biggest winner of the wave for me. It may not be the largest set, in fact, it's the third largest, but this is really, I hope, will be something that sets a gold standard for future LEGO sets to learn from this, for future LEGO mechs to take advantage of the amount of detail factored into this build. It's just absolutely phenomenal. The same can kind of be said for the Source Dragon of Motion. This is the largest Ninjago dragon, and unlike the Golden Ultra Dragon, which I felt was more of an okay build, I definitely liked some of the smaller dragons better that had come before, like Lloyd's Legendary Dragon. This just also takes things up completely a huge notch. Obviously, the amount of articulation you get in the wings, being able to actually fold the wings backwards is so cool, and that is, in my opinion, the best thing about this build is just the amount of things you can do with it pose-wise. The crazy, evil wolf throne on the top is so aesthetically different than anything we've gotten out of a Ninjago dragon before, and I think it's really cool how the set implies that maybe this dragon might not actually be evil, but is being controlled by Roz and being forced to do evil bidding. Of course, the amount of articulation you have in the dragon itself is incredibly commendable. The rotating waist, the twisting limbs, tail being actually able to rotate up and down, back and forth, rotate on a socket, and then swing side to side with a recolored crystallized blade piece in dual molded dark red and trans orange. They absolutely went all out on this dragon, and it really shows. So this for $150 and 1,716 pieces, easily one of the best priced Ninjago dragons they've done. I could have seen them pricing this at $200 and I would have been like, yeah, that's about fair for what you get. But $150 is super great for this. $100 for the mech is also really great given that it comes with 1,055 pieces. Should they have included a villain minifigure? At least one or two, yeah, I definitely feel like this set is missing minifigures. And it was a similar case in the previous May mech that we got for LEGO Monkey Kid, where they had May's mech and they literally just had, I think, 2 minifigures in that, and people were complaining about that. But this having only 1 minifigure, I can only imagine how people are going to feel when images of this actually release online, because at the time of recording this, no images have leaked, so this is actually completely new information, but this is not going to be published for a while anyways.
Even with the one exclusive minifigure being the only con to the set that they should have included more, the mech itself is just so good. I also feel like it's kind of a flex, like LEGO is saying, hey look, we know you're buying this for the mech. This mech is so good, we don't need minifigures to sell it, and that's a gutsy move, and I hope it pays off, but yeah, this is absolutely phenomenal. And then of course, the $250 Tournament Temple City with 3,489 pieces is again another incredible value for a Ninjago set. You have a fully detailed temple pagoda as well as a working kind of water wheel here. You've got all sorts of different buildings scattered all throughout the model, and you can even connect it to the smaller sets of the wave. It's just so good. And while this doesn't necessarily break the mold of a Ninjago temple style build or even just a LEGO Asian inspired architecture build, you could see something just as good as this in Monkey Kid, if not better. I feel like this is on par with some of the beautiful playsets that we have gotten for LEGO Monkey Kid, like the recently revealed Celestial Tower, at least I hope it's revealed by the time this video comes out, as well as some of the other ones we've gotten in the past, like the Heavenly Realm set, as well as the Flower Fruit Mountain. Finally, Ninjago is also catching up to Monkey Kid and giving us some absolutely beautiful temples. It's not as revolutionary as something like Cole's Titan Dragon Mech, which I feel really redefines how a mech should be built, or even as groundbreaking as the largest Ninjago dragon ever here with the Source Dragon Emotion, but it's really good. It's really solid. It's not the best at what it does, but it's among the best, and it's among the best of its peers. And I feel like the only way to actually have made it better was if they were to fully close up the temple, but for $250 and over 3,400 pieces, there's not a lot more I could ask for. But then we get to, honestly, some of the real stinkers in the wave, and I hate to be so negative after especially being so positive with the first half of the larger sets. What was LEGO doing with this? What is LEGO cooking with this? And I'm so curious what people think of this online. I'm sure some people are gonna like it, but $90, 576 pieces. Did they just take the extra money that was gonna go into like these two sets and just throw it into this one? I don't know what's going on with the price there. $90 is ridiculous for what you get. And you don't even get really any special minifigures other than the Wolf General with the bright red Shatterspin armor, which I think looks kind of goofy, honestly. I'm not a big fan of the Shatterspin armor piece. I think it's much cooler in the show when it's dual or even triple molded. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with this set. It's pretty weak in terms of a group build, as well as the individual vehicles feel fairly uninspired. The best vehicles are the motorcycles, and those are the most basic vehicles in the set. Sora's glider, as the spoiler of the vehicle, feels almost like an add-on to make it a fourth vehicle. And I don't know, I feel like we have been spoiled by really great team vehicles done from Ninjago in the past. The Ultra Stealth Raider from 2016 is, in my opinion, the pinnacle of what a vehicle like this should be. And this feels like they're trying to recapture some of the magic of the original Ultrasonic Raider and later the Legacy remake of the Ultrasonic Raider, but just not really capturing it in a way that makes the individual vehicles look cool. So honestly, I feel like that is one of the weaker sets from Ninjago in a long time for me personally. It is just what I think though. Maybe I'm gonna be like the only reviewer online being super harsh on that set, but I'm not a big fan, and especially for the price, I say definitely wait for a discount. Moving onward to the second to last set here, 71818, the Temple Training Tournament Grounds, or definitely butchered the name there, but you know what I mean. $50 honestly kind of surprised me, and I will caveat this by saying at this time the prices are just rumors. In fact, I did not believe the fact that this set was $50 when I googled it. I was like, there's no way, this is like a $30 set. And I looked it up and it said the rumor is that it's $50, so I could be wrong. This is all based on rumors at the time of recording. But actually looking at the piece count, 659 pieces, I was pretty surprised at how much they packed into it, and then $50 feels a lot more reasonable, especially given that it includes not one, not two, but 3 exclusive minifigures, including 2 highly desirable ones in the terms of Evil J and Tox. All in all, it's another Ninjago figure pack, and you're buying it for the figures and less so for the build. I think some of the functions are alright, but on its own, it's not the most engaging set. I like the attempt at the brick-built Sensei Wu, or maybe first Ninjitsu Master statue. We don't really know who that's supposed to depict, but it does feel a little bit too scaled and shrunken down for me. I think it would have been really cool if they made it some sort of articulated figure, much like the buildable Giant Man from Marvel, and they've done it for Ninjago in the past for the Stone Army. So I think if it was at that scale, it would have been a little bit better, but as it is right now, it just feels kind of like a small add-on. Although I do really love that it is modular with the Tournament Temple City. I love it when LEGO sets are modular in between each other, especially within the same sub-theme, so that is really cool, and I do appreciate that they did that, but the value is a little hit or miss for me there. And then finally, Zane's Ice Motorcycle here for $10 is admittedly a fair deal. 85 pieces, $10, 2 large pieces in transparent blue. Yeah, it's a good deal money-wise, but it's just not the most exciting thing for me. The function is just kind of okay. And guess what would have made this function a lot more fun? If you actually had a villain minifigure to whack with the side blades. I feel like that is almost a huge missed opportunity. I don't know what they were thinking, not including a villain in this set. Yes, it's only $10 and it's 89 pieces, but couldn't they have included just at least a standard wolf mask warrior? Doesn't even need to have the crazy red claws on top of it. Just throw in a regular one with no attachment on the back. I feel like that would have added so much to the play value of the set, because right now, as a kid, if I were to get this, I would love rolling it around and activating a feature, but I'd want to actually whack something with it. So feels like a bit of a miss for me just to not have a second minifigure in the set, especially for $10. It is kind of what we're used to with Ninjago, at least having a hero and a villain. So that's a bit of a miss, but honestly, I'm willing to give up 3 kind of mid sets. Honestly, they're kind of mid sets. Like the best one out of the 3 mid sets is the $50 one, and that one's just okay. It's maybe a little above mid. I'm being a little harsh on it. This one's below mid for the combo vehicles, and the Ice Motorcycle is the definition of mid. But I'm willing to write those off if we are actually getting in the same wave the best mech ever from LEGO, arguably the best Ninjago dragon ever from LEGO, and a temple that is among the best Asian-inspired architecture LEGO does. Yeah, I'm willing to make that trade-off. Done. Right off those 3 sets. We got some of my favorite Ninjago sets, I think, of all time in this wave. I think the Source Dragon Emotion may remain my favorite Ninjago dragon for years. It may take something even greater to top it. And obviously, they're going to have to either do this again in a different color scheme, or somehow even top this to make me like a LEGO mech. Not even from Ninjago, a LEGO mech, any theme better than this. So listen, for a wave that includes some absolutely phenomenal heavy hitters, it's totally fine that some of it is just not as good as some of the others. That about sums up my thoughts on this wave of LEGO Ninjago Dragons Rising. Again, one of the most interesting waves we've gotten in a long time, and I just love some of the sets here. I mean, you saw in my unboxing video, I was freaking out when I saw these, and for good reason. But of course, these are just my thoughts, so do let me know down in the comments below. What do you think of these sets? Do you like them? Do you dislike them? How would you rank these sets? And which ones, if any, are you going to be picking up day 1 when they launch? That's all for this mega review. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for taking a look with me at all of these Ninjago sets. Alright, so that was our coverage of the entire LEGO Ninjago Dragons Rising set waves. Let me know down in the comments which set is your favorite, which ones do you like, which ones do you dislike, and which ones are you most excited to get when these come out on June 1st, 2024. I personally am very partial towards the mech. As someone who's been a lifelong fan of LEGO Bionicle and LEGO action figures, obviously I gravitated the most towards that one, but that dragon is also absolutely phenomenal, and the temple is just peak perfection for what you would want to see out of a LEGO build. Obviously, I'm a little more mixed on some of the other sets, with I think the Ninja combo vehicle being the weakest of the wave, but you know, they can't all be winners. I hope you did enjoy our coverage of the Ninjago Summer 2024 sets, and again, let me know in the comments which ones do you want to see me do individual reviews on very soon. Thanks all for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way soon, and bye for now.